What's up guys, Aaronius here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. In today's video, we're going to be going over some major buffs that are coming to 3 mythical champions, and I want to give you my take from a free-to-play perspective in today's video. So let's get over to those 3 buffed champions. Alright, so we've got the first champion here. It is actually probably the biggest buff out of all of them, I would say, or the most involved buff. So I'm going to do that one first, and then I'll go through them. So we've got Aphodus, Fralny, and Mezimel on the list. So this is Aphodus. So his changes, it says, with the following changes, we aim to refine Aphodus's kit in both forms to better reflect his dual roles in PvE and PvP, increasing his overall impact on the battlefield. I mean, honestly, I never really see him ever in PvP, but in PvE, some people probably use him early, mid-game, some late game in Hydra on certain teams. He's probably on a lower level team because most endgame players are probably going to be using Trunda or the billion damage comp with a Yannica that does the shields, the damage to the shields. So, while working on his form, they aim to improve his role as a burner, not only as a debuff landing champion, but as a hard-hitting damage dealer too. So he's going to have synergy with HP burn by doing more damage with that, which is nice. So let's go through all of this and just go right into his main form here. So he damage increased on his main form, Blink Cut. Attacks one enemy, places a 60% decreased defense for 2 turns. Okay, what's bolded is what's going to be given the buff. Right now he just has attacks one enemy, places a perfect veil on himself for 1 turn. It's kind of meh. I mean, the perfect veil is whatever. I guess it helps during Hydra battles, you know, especially against the head of Torment. So he's going to be probably a damage dealer that will come into play for a lot of lower level, mid game, late game players. But of course, there's going to be a lot of testing with this guy as soon as he does get those buffs. For his A2, Umbral Stingers. Damage increased. Attacks all enemies. Before attacking, places an increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. And he now, with the buff, will ignore 25% of the target's defense if they are not under HP burn. And if they're under HP burn, he ignores 50% of the target's defense. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm interested to see how much damage it does, but the thing is, as a free-to-play player, it's going to take us years unless we're really lucky with RNG and pull those mythicals. So for me, I pulled 1 mythical in almost a year since the release of the mythical champions, and it was a duplicate Mikage. Now, I will say it's an amazing champion. Mikage is fantastic in PvE, PvP, everywhere. Very well-rounded champion in the game, but having 2 of her, I guess, is not really necessary, but it is nice to have so you can utilize her in multiple roles in the game. Also, his ability on the A2 increases duration of all enemy debuffs by 1 turn. So, of course, if he lands HP burns, he'll increase the debuffs on the enemies, which is kind of nice, extending that HP burn and therefore extending the length of time that he's allowed to do more and more damage to PvE like Hydra. That's where I'm seeing him probably going to be played mostly, is still in Hydra. But who knows? Maybe he comes into play in PvP because you have a lot of players who use Stone Skin on all of their champions so often now. And with Stone Skin, he's going to do a lot more damage, right? If there's HP burn out there. So there's a possibility that people maybe put on the, not Nature's Wrath, but if you're using him for PvP specifically, let me just remember what this is. Cracking Roots, I think, which does more damage to Stone Skin. So I wonder if he can just destroy Stone Skin instantly with that damage output with the HP burn on Stone Skin as well. I don't know. It's a possibility, but I doubt he's going to be that strong. And it's kind of a waste of time anyways, because by the time you break their Stone Skin, they're going to get a turn and possibly kill you. So it's really hard to then keep him alive since he doesn't have a passive that will help him survive longer. On his A3, damage increased as well, also attacks all enemies. Damage increases by 25% against targets under any debuffs at all. Okay, that's the buff right there. Instantly activates any HP burn debuffs on each enemy. Okay, that's pretty strong. So yeah, he could come into PvP for sure with the first form. He could, especially if his damage was increased significantly to the point where he can actually nuke people into the earth. That's not bad though. Instantly activate HP burn. So you want to pair him with someone like that Void Legendary. I don't have him. I don't recall his name. Maybe it's Sulfurion. I think it's Sulfurion. Yeah, so you want to bring in Sulfurion. You want to do the HP burn with Sulfurion. HP burn is good synergy with him, actually. It would be really, really good synergy. So he could end up being a really strong champion pairing with, because he's going to be able to revive the Aphidus if Aphidus dies. So Sulfurion also really tanky. He has the HP in all battles by 33%, with the revive, and grants an extra turn after he revives everybody. So yeah, that could be a pretty insane pairing right there. And then on this guy's alternate form for Aphidus, we've got a buff to the A1, Crushing Pinchers. So his alternate form is really not the better of the two. I think his main form is better than the alternate form, but attacks one enemy, 50%, places a 50% increased accuracy buff on the ally with the highest accuracy for 2 turns and fills their turn meter by 10%. It's still kind of weak, not crazy, but better than, it's more mythical level, I guess. I'd probably say more so on a legendary level scale. You're putting increased accuracy on the champion with highest accuracy, so they just have more accuracy. Are they trying to focus that on PvP? Because in PvE, the accuracy is much easier to come by. You can hit those threshold levels in PvE a lot easier than in PvP. But again, maybe, because he does have stuns on the A2 with Putrid Cocoon. So maybe you do. He's kind of similar to Mikage, where attacks all enemies, places a stun debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. So that's not bad. Also places 2 continuous heal buffs on all allies for 2 turns. So he comes in as a support and a CC and damage. So he kind of has it all. I mean, he's like an upgraded version of Lady Mikage for the most part, right? I think that's on a 3-turn cooldown too if you book him out. If he's on a 3-turn cooldown with that, that's not bad. Aphidus is what? I don't recall what Aphidus is, to be honest. Is he Dark Elf? Yes. So Aphidus on his second form, yeah, that's on a 3-turn cooldown. So he's kind of like Mikage. Does he remove buffs from the enemies? He places Provoke. He's actually more CC. And he places Strengthen. Okay, this is actually looking pretty good for PvP. It's pretty good. So let's see. On his A3, places a Provoke on all enemies for 1 turn. Also places a Strengthen 25% and increased defense on all allies for 2 turns. But currently, that ability places Strengthen buff on himself and an increased defense on all allies. So all they're doing is adding the Strengthen buff on all allies. So yeah, I mean, it's just a small change, but obviously putting Strengthen on everybody as compared to just himself, that's a bit of a selfish move for him, considering he's a mythical champion. So yes, also on a 3-turn cooldown. So this guy could be absolutely insane in PvP now if he has really good damage multipliers. But I think his second form is really strong. If I show you this really quickly, he has a lot of CC. So he's got CC here, CC there. You want to build him with a lot of speed. Accuracy, if you're going to use him to do CC like Mikage, which you probably don't need that, you'd probably use Mikage paired with him, or if you don't have Mikage, you'd use him as a potential CC in Arena. This form just looks so sick, by the way. Probably one of the coolest champions look in the game, the aesthetic wise. But yeah, so let's go on to, I think that's everything. Actually, no, one more thing here. When attacked, has a 100% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff and a 40% chance of placing a stun debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. So the 40% chance, so the chance percentage is what was buffed with his passive. So it says right now, when attacked, has a 100% chance of placing a weaken and a 35% chance. So they literally buffed that by 5%, which is very small, but it's still significant enough to place a stun, or a higher chance to place stun on the targets whenever he's attacked. The one issue he's going to have, though, like a main concern, is going to be polymorph. So he'll be a polymorph magnet in this form. I guess I would be very, very, very careful about that. Of course, you can make him super tanky, defensive unit. You could go multiple ways with this guy. He has multiple roles now when he gets the buff. So I do like that about him. So let's move on to the next one. We're going to move on to Mezimel. All right, so we're back. We've got Mezimel here. So what are the buffs for Mezimel? Mezimel also receiving a noticeable boost to her damage, making her a far more threatening presence on the battlefield, specifically for PvP. Of course, you can use her for PvE as well. She's going to be much more well-rounded, but specifically, she's going to be utilized a lot more in PvP after this buff. So in the main form, Moonclaw, the damage is increased. So it's going to be the A1 right here. Moonclaw places a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns and an attack 1 enemy. So that will be pretty strong of an ability now. It's just going to probably just nuke 1 person. Then on the A2, I believe, the Scarlet Crescent. So right now it attacks 1 enemy 2 times, ignores Stone Skin, Strength, and Ally Protection buffs, and places a block revive on the target if they're killed. So with the buff, it is going to now be ignores 15% of the target's defense, as well as Stone Skin, Strength. So that's all the same. So it's just the ignore defense that's given a buff to that ability, which means she could potentially wipe out the UDK, which is defending and supporting the damage dealer that you're trying to wipe out, like Wukong, the nuke Wukongs that are so annoying for the Wukong strategy cheese, which stinks for us free-to-play players because obviously that's what we use all the time. We use the nuke Wukong and we use UDK to back us up so that we can survive. We could wake back up from being destroyed by somebody and then nuke, hopefully. So with this, it could now end up potentially one-shotting UDK and one-shotting the Wukong or another champion that you wish to take out. So that's pretty cool. And then on the alternate form, so on her second form, we've got the A1. So that one is Spirit of the Pack. So it attacks all enemies. This attack will not trigger counterattacks, and the damage is just increased. That's all. So we don't know exactly how much the damage is being increased by, but it is increased nonetheless. And then on her A2, attacks all enemies 2 times and places a True Fear for 2 turns. The attack will not trigger counterattacks, will also ignore unkillable and block damage, and the damage on that is also increased. That's insane. So she's going to be nuts, I think. I think people are going to be utilizing her a lot more, and you're going to be way happier if you do end up pulling this champion. All right, last but not least, we've got Fralny the Mechanist. This guy is a dwarf mythical champion. He is meant for damage dealing. He's meant for PvP, but he just doesn't have the damage output that people are looking for. But now with this buff, he could end up being pretty crazy. And if I pulled him personally as a free-to-play player, you all know if you've been watching my channel, I have Samson. I would definitely put him into Samson's gear and try him out, and after the buff, of course, and then see if he can actually rock, right? And I think he would, but of course I don't have him. That's just kind of like a pipe dream of mine if I did get this guy in the future. So I would obviously prefer other champions over him, but it would be nice to have a better damage dealer on their account. So Seismic Quake, which is the A1. So right now, Seismic Quake here ignores 5% of the target's defense for each buff on this champion. It's much easier to place buffs on yourself than it is to have other people get buffs. So if you're just trying to make a speed team with this guy, you use him with like a Siphi, a Duchess, or other champions that place multiple buffs on the team. Marichka, that I have, places multiple buffs like Strengthen and Shields and things like that. So she could be really, really well paired with a Fralny as well as other support-based champions so that he does as much damage as possible. That's just the A1, so he can pretty much just wipe somebody off the map if he does enough damage. The issue with this guy is UDK is such a problem for him where he doesn't ignore Stone Skin and he doesn't ignore anything that I'm aware of. So he can steal buffs and it cannot be resisted, but Stone Skin has a 50-50 proc. Even though it's not resistible and he doesn't need accuracy on this ability, there is a chance that you do not steal the Stone Skin because it's a 50-50 chance to steal it. And then attacks on enemies, damage of this skill increases by 30%. This is on the A3 if this champion has max HP higher than each of the target's max HP. So of course with this one, it could be tough because you could face support champions that have like 140,000 HP. And then it's difficult to get full damage and things like that and multiple stats on a damage dealer. So you might have like 100,000 HP on this guy or 105,000 HP on this guy in most cases. as compared to 140 or 150,000 with crazy high crit damage and speed, because you do need crazy high crit damage and speed in live arena in order to take a turn with your damage dealers in case your speed champions get blocked in the pick and ban phase. So this guy, all of the abilities here, all they did was give a damage increase to all three of those abilities. And with the alternate form, they ended up giving him a damage boost to the A1, which is the, no, not the A1, pulverizing procedure, which is the A2, attacks one enemy. They just damage increased it as well. So again, he doesn't ignore anything, which is kind of frustrating as a damage dealer. If he can't ignore anything, if he can't block revive, no ignoring of shields, no ignoring of strengthens or any other buffs, that's a little bit frustrating. This is the only one, his A1, that's it. His A1 is the only thing that ignores. I really wish they put in a attacks the enemy 2 times or 3 times, so that way he doesn't have problems against the UDK, so that way he doesn't have a problem against the champions like Rotos, right? If you do an A1 on a Rotos, he's not going to ignore his passive. That's the issue. So he gets increased crit damage and increased speed and everything, but the issue is he's not ignoring Rotos' passive. So Rotos could just clap this guy pretty easily. He does have a nice aura of HP in all battles, but again, he's just, the issue is, yes, you can give him as much damage as you want, but he's not going to have those interesting passives to stay alive longer. Samson, for example, has an amazing passive where he can stay alive because of the passive. His passive is decreases the damage this champion receives from critical hits by 20%. Counterattacks the attacker whenever he's hit with a critical. Has a 50% chance of counterattacking the attacker when hit with a strong, normal, or weak hit, which is an amazing passive. If that passive was on Fralny, that would make Fralny way stronger. Way stronger. Just like absolutely insane. Like he needs something. Fralny needs like some type of passive that will help him become just the next level. Just having increased damage with no passives to keep people dead, to block revive. I mean, to go through Stone Skin, things like that. He doesn't even place debuffs. I mean, that's pretty frustrating, right? Let me just go right back to the dwarves again really quickly. Go to Fralny. Where's the debuffs in his kit? Not a single debuff in his entire kit here, which is very frustrating. Not even in his alternate form. He's just there to try to help tank, but I mean, you have to swap to his other form to try to tank, and if that's all you're doing, it's just like you could possibly put him in a stall defense, but who's doing that? Why would you even, maybe on defense and arena, but I mean, it's just not really there. I think it's going to be great. He's going to do a lot more damage. I just think he's not nearly as strong as like Mezimel and other damage dealers. Like even the Aphodus is going to be better than him now, I think, for damage. I think Aphodus, because he has interesting skill kit as well. Placing a veil so he won't get killed right away. That's an interesting skill kit on the A1. Increase attack on all allies. Increase the duration of all enemy debuffs. Places HP burns. Like he at least has debuffs and stuff in his kit. And then he's going to get damage buffs as well. And his second form does stuns and CC and strengthen and increased defense. The other guy just does ally protection and unkillable on himself, right? Which is not that strong. Anyways, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you on a video soon. Take care.